2 years ago, Americans watched in horror as a crisis unfolded at the Kabul airport.
There's desperation and anguish.
More than 80,000 Afghans have since arrived in America, but this story is still unfolding. I'm Andrea Smartin. In my new podcast, Stranger Becomes Neighbor, we'll find out what happens to these new arrivals in our communities. Who would help our newest neighbors? Follow us at kslpodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you listen.
So, Kristen, when did you think that the Adderall became a problem?
I started noticing it probably maybe end of junior year, first part of his senior year. I noticed he was staying up late and going to school, and then he'd crash for days at a time. And, you know, with gaming, kids sometimes do that. And so, and I'm not going to lie, I think I was in a little bit of denial, too. And when I finally got to the point where I was like, I'm taking your medication, because he would run out early. And he would tell me these silly lies like, oh, I dropped them and some of them fell in the toilet, or I don't know where my medication is, like these. And after the second lie, a red flag should have went up, but it didn't. And so there was just a lot of silliness like that. And I'd get him and I'd say, okay, I'm going to give you one a day, and then I'll know that we're good. And I did that for a while, and then they'd start disappearing, and because he knew where they were. I didn't feel like I had to hide things from him. I trusted my kid, you know. And it just got progressively worse and worse. And then, and I don't remember why you told me, but I remember him getting mad at me at one point and telling me, well, I don't care if I have a prescription because I can go buy it anywhere.
So did you eventually end up buying it on the streets, Spencer?
Yeah. I don't think I bought any Adderall really until excuse me, I was 20, 21. But yeah,
because through this podcast, I'm fortunate enough to talk to a lot of people in the addiction realm, and I know right now Adderall is a hot commodity right now with college students, with partiers.
And it has been for quite a while.
Oh, yeah. So I'm late to the party.
A little bit. But I mean, but it doesn't seem to be going away. I think primarily because of what Spencer brought up, and that is there's a lot of social pressure to be bigger, faster, stronger, smarter, Adderall is a medication that stimulates your brain. Now, if you don't have an understimulated brain, meaning if you don't have ADHD, then really you're just doing, amphetamines. That's all you're doing.
Well, I've heard people call it a prescribed meth.
It's a methylphenidate is the name for Adderall. Adderall's the drug name, and methylphenidate's the clinical name, and so. That's true. And meth has been something that people do in various forms for a long time. Saying it that way, I think, misleads people about its proper use because it really isn't the same as doing meth. But it is an amphetamine-based medication and can be abused in the same way that meth can be abused. So
Spence, you end up at 20 going to the streets, buying, some Adderall pills when you weren't prescribed them.
Yeah.
And do you end up getting in trouble?
Well,
I mean, I don't know. I don't know where you.
What effect was it having on you? Maybe we could start with that. Like at this point now, a normal prescription isn't enough for you. You feel like you need to go out and start buying it. What effects were you feeling? Maybe when you didn't have it, did you experience withdrawals or anything like that?
I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know what to do. I just would. Let me back this up a little bit. So senior year, so before I was 20, right? Hopefully I'm not still in school when I'm 20. I don't think you can do that nowadays.
Well, we're not judging.
Well, I was smart, but I just didn't like getting stuff done, right? But 18, I'm having one of those days where I'm just real down on myself, thinking to myself, God took Dad away. I'm getting punished by him, and there's no reason for that. I've always tried to be a good person. So I'm out of control this day. And I was huffing air duster with my friend.
You were what?
Huffing air duster. air duster. So
Is that something you regularly did?
no, it was something that I was doing to try and pass drug tests because my parents were drug testing me at the time. They wanted to make sure I wasn't doing anything bad, and you could do air duster, and you could pass a drug test, but you might die. I mean, you're going to die if you have air duster.
That sounds like a horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Horrible
very,
thing.
very dangerous.
And if you don't know what air duster is, it's the compressed air that they use to clean out computers.
Right.
So I was huffing that at the wheel, and I was driving in a back roads in Syracuse, Utah there. And the last thing I remember was saying wheel. I was saying wheel, trying to get my friend to grab the wheel because I was going out. I woke up and there was glass everywhere. My friend was gone. There was an EMT in the window yelling at me. And they ended up taking me to the hospital. You know, thank the Lord there was no injuries to me or him. But I got my license taken away for 3 years. So I spent a lot of time at home. And while I was at home, I didn't want to hang out with my old friends. So I stayed home and I played World of Warcraft for days at a time on Adderall. 3 or 4 days at a time I'd take playing World of Warcraft. You can't just stay up 3 to 4 days taking Adderall and not run out. And that's where I'd start buying it on the streets. It's from my friends there. And then for about 2.5 years, I just spent maybe 2 years, I spent just doing Adderall and playing video games. Because I didn't want to hang out with my bad friends. But I didn't know how to make new friends because I didn't have a car. I couldn't really go places. I couldn't really get a good job without having my family have to take me. So it was a huge blow to the self-esteem. Huge.
Oh, no, I get it.
And as it should be. I mean, you're a huffing air duster behind the wheel of a car, but it's still, you have to deal with that after, you know.
You mentioned that your parents were drug testing you at the time. Were you doing other drugs as well that you were trying to get away with?
So I was smoking marijuana. My mom caught me smoking weed one time and would drug test me for that. And that was the drug I was trying to.
Okay.
To keep
How old
under
were
wraps.
you when you started smoking marijuana?
17.
Okay.
17.
So,
Yeah.
Christy, why Spencer's doing all this? What's going on with you?
You know, I knew he was acting weird and he was struggling, but I kind of attributed a lot of it to the death of his father because it was really hard on him. His dad was his best friend, and it really messed him up. And I think, too, I parented a lot by guilt because of what my kids had all been through.
I think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know I
honest.
did. And I also, he, at that time, the thing he didn't tell you is where he was getting the money for all that. He was stealing from me constantly. And it took a long time for me to finally go, okay, I cannot have money missing from my purse this many times and not say something. You know? I just didn't want to face it.
But your guilt was kind of keeping you from addressing the
For
issue.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I never thought he was using the money for drugs. I figured he was using the money to do things with his friends and just get out and feel better. And I'm like, it's making him feel better. Like, I didn't know what to do. I think anybody that gets widowed with children needs to go directly to therapy. Do not pass go. Get a therapist.
Yes.
But I think that was a lot of the reason why I didn't notice a lot of the things that was going on with him. Plus, I was, parenting 2 other children. But I've thought many times I don't even want to go back and try to figure out how much money he went through in those couple of years. So after the accident, 3 years of playing World of Warcraft and, just trying to figure out everything, where does your life take a turn then?
Well, that puts me at about what? Let's see, got
When did you go to
18. I went to Anasazi actually when I was...
What's Anasazi?
Well, Anasazi is a program for at-risk youth, and it's an outdoor wilderness program.
Okay.
So
in Arizona.
I spent 6 weeks out in Arizona with Native Americans, and who was affiliated with them, right? So they weren't all Native Americans, but most of them were. And they just teach you just to live off the land, and you just go out there and everything's basic. It draws it all back to simple living, and it makes it a lot easier to be able to clear your head. And they'll take you on a hike for 6 weeks, and they do a lot of therapy, stuff like that. So, it was a wonderful experience. I can't say anything. I can't say anything bad about it. I loved it. It was great.
And so you're there with the therapist, and at that point, were you diving into some of the issues that you had inside of you, like the loss of your father, and that kind of stuff, and helping get closure with that?
I mean, as much closure as you can get, yeah. I mean, excuse me, I still had a lot to learn, but I learned quite a bit from them. They would talk about, and for anybody interested, it's actually MTV True Life did a documentary, a little mini documentary, I guess you'd call what they are.
On you?
On me. And my mom.
Not my proudest moment, but it was a tough time in our life, you know.
And how old were you when you were at Anasazi? Do you remember? Was that early adolescence?
17.
Okay.
17-ish.
17.
Yep. I actually turned 17 on the show, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so now, then you come back from Anasazi, and then you got in the car wreck.
I ran into more problems, right. So Anasazi gave me a good base.
And a lot of attention. And I think that was the problem.
How did you, I mean, I assume not everyone who goes to Anasazi ends up on an MTV video. So, like, what happened? Why were the two of you chosen?
I can tell you. So, I was sort of at my wit's end. I didn't know what to do. And I knew I couldn't deal with it. I don't have the tools I don't have an addict brain. I don't know how he thinks. I've never that's not true, actually. My older brother was an addict. So I have zero patience for addiction. I'm kind of that personality that either you do it or you don't. Just don't do it. It's not hard. Don't do it. Like, that was how I thought about things.
Which makes understanding addict thinking impossible, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Just made it worse. So I got online and I was doing some research and I found this program. So I called them and they told me the price and I was like, ugh, I don't know if I can do that, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. I was thinking about selling my house, trying to figure out what I was going to do financially. So I wasn't ready to make a decision yet. So then about 3 weeks later, they call me back because they'd got my contact info. And she's like, MTV wants to do a show. Would your son be interested in making a video and letting us take a look at it? We're going to have everybody that we have on this list do a video, and then, then they would pay for him to come out here. And I'm like, if I can get him to do it, sure. And I didn't know if he'd do it. So he did it, and literally within 20 minutes they called. They want him. They like him. They want him. Okay. So, I mean, it was a great experience. They came out and filmed at the house and filmed with him. But I feel like that time, that 6 weeks with them, was just so valuable. And he learned so much. Now, I think the timing of it probably wasn't great. I don't think he was done. But I think it gave him the tools that when he finally decided he was done, he knew what he needed to do. But when he came back from Anasazi...
A little bit of a superstar.
Well, yeah.
He's on MTV.
Right. And I felt like I got my son back because he was clean. He was happy. He was that kid I remembered. But then, like, girls would approach him when we were out. And I think, why do these girls want to be around my son? He's a drug addict. Like, why is that a draw? And I think, and you'll have to answer that, but I do know that it got him a lot of attention. And I didn't even know people watched that show.
The answer, Spencer, is because you're so good looking. That's the answer.
Mom.
Yeah.
No.
You are a good looking man.
These girls look like, why do they look
Mom
like
burn.
Yeah.
That's a real deal. Mom
As my
burn.
8-year-old would say, boom, roasted. I don't even know where that comes from, but that's what he says. So you come back, you've got a little celebrity thing going on.
Did they suggest, sorry to interrupt, did they suggest follow-up care? Because what I know about wilderness programs of various sorts, it is intended to do what it sounds like it did. Mm-hmm. Get you out of the environment, take you back to simple and basic, help you get clean and focused. But they typically will be the first to say you still have a lot of work to do once you get home.
And in fact, I had to go out there for some training while he was gone. And they trained the parents, to help them know how to deal with addicts and stuff. And then the aftercare afterward. But it didn't take very long before he was like, I've already done my time. I'm not going. I'm not doing it. And I'm not going to fight him.
A lot of teenagers are resistant when they come home. So they're like, hey, I'm fine now.
Yeah, I'm good. I don't need to, it's all good.
So on this podcast, we often talk about someone's rock bottom. And I would think you doing the duster driving would be your rock bottom. Was that, in fact, your rock bottom?
So, when you say rock bottom, it could have been one of many. Do you mean as far as rock bottom as
Well, when did it change for you? When did you seek help?
Well, I realized I was on an uphill battle when I hit that rock bottom with the air duster. Yep. I realized I was on an uphill battle, and
It was a long 3 years.
Yep.
So you just kind of coasted at home, isolating. You'd had that horrible experience of the accident, but now it sounded to me like you didn't really know where to go or what to do next. You're a young adult, and that's an important and difficult transition time in a person's life. A lot of adults don't understand how or remember how from about 18 to 22, that's this transition into young adult life that feels kind of scary. And if it's already complicated with, you had, I'm sure, still symptoms of grief, dealing with your father, an addiction, and now you've had this accident. It sounds like you sort of put a pause on your young adult development and just stayed home, played video games, and did Adderall. Is that right?
Well, I went from being on MTV and people knew a lot about me to getting in this wreck, and it was all over the news.
Oh, okay.
I've been there.
Casey knows about that.
You've been on the news?
No.
But it was all over the news, and everybody knew about it. And they made an example out of me, as well they should have. I would never want another kid doing what I did. But they made an example out of me, and I didn't want to come out of the house. I just wanted to be home.
So you hid.
I graduated early because I didn't want to be in school anymore. I didn't want to look at people anymore. I already felt out of place before.
So you went from a positive celebrity to a negative celebrity.
Yep.
Yeah. And so what was that like? You said you stayed at home for 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, about. I mean, I had some really awesome friends who came in, and tried to get me out of the house most of the time, but
you were resistant to being in public?
I just didn't like being out. I didn't have a good self-image.
Did you have any negative experiences with people persecuting you or giving you a hard time about the accident?
Yeah, one time I did in high school, and that's why I graduated so early, is somebody called me an F-up to my face. Yeah. And I was just like, you know what? You're right. I am. I'm going to go home now.
Which is unfortunate because it was an accident, and but that probably spoke to your challenged sense of self and your self-esteem issues from growing up when somebody calls you out like that in public.
You're listening to Project Recovery. We're talking with Kristen and her son Spencer about his Adderall addiction. We'll be back in just a few seconds.
Two years ago, Americans watched in horror as a crisis unfolded at the Kabul airport.
She was tear-gassed and beaten.
Images of thousands desperate to escape Taliban oppression filled our news feeds. More than 80,000 Afghans made it to America. But the story didn't end there.
It was very cold. There was no power, no heat.
Who would help our newest neighbors? I'm Andrea Smartin. In Stranger Becomes Neighbor, you'll hear the stories of some remarkable refugees who left their homes and their dreams behind, only to start over from zero.
Their only possession was 3 blankets.
And you'll meet Americans who stepped up to help them.
You want me to come when you deliver your baby.
What can one person do in the face of an international disaster decades in the making? That's Stranger Becomes Neighbor. Find us at kslpodcast.com, follow us on Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else you listen.
So at what point did you stop just hiding at home? When did something change?
Well, it was actually a couple of my friends that kept coming over and hanging out with me because they saw that some of my Facebook posts looked a little worrisome.
Bleak.
Yep. Somebody who may be getting ready to kill themselves, because we've had in Syracuse, we've had a community of people kill themselves. It's just
a problem.
It's
it's a problem everywhere.
I think it is. Yeah.
It's big in Syracuse.
Well, and good for your friends. So they recognized you were struggling, and they, instead of withdrawing, they came more?
Persisted.
Yeah.
They persisted, and they got me out.
What effect did that have on you?
Well, the next year or so, I'd find myself still taking Adderall, but I'd be out doing stuff with my friends. I'd be out doing volleyball. I'd be finding other things. And we were very active. Basketball, volleyball. We'd go find the old rope swing down by the lake sort of thing. and we'd go swing on that, even though it was illegal. But I mean, we did a lot of really fun things, and it started.
Rope swings are illegal in Syracuse. Is that right?
It was Layton, actually.
Oh, Layton.
Oh, that makes sense.
Well,
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
No fun in Layton.
Nope.
Right.
So you're out with your friends. You're still doing Adderall. May I ask, are you still doing Adderall?
I have been clean from Adderall for about 2 months.
2 months. Only
Yep.
2 months.
Yeah, it's still, and see, I'd actually been talking to Dustin Hawkins. You've had him on the show.
Yeah, he was on here with WAR, Workout Addiction Recovery,
Right, yeah.
but they just started a new program called the School of Addiction Recovery.
I've seen that,
It's
yeah.
so sore, and I know you're going to go meet with him a little later,
Yeah.
but you're going to try to get into his program.
Yeah.
And so one thing I have found out, working with Pinnacle, is that there's not a detox for Adderall. You know what I mean? Like if alcohol,
Right.
they just stop prescribing it and you just stop. And so...
And I mean, when you have an addiction to a substance, you do want to try to get off it with some sort of
Taper?
supervision of a physician, tapering off, yes. Adderall is a fairly short-lived medication in your system, so you can get off it a little more quickly than a lot of other drugs that a person might be addicted to, but still it can be scary, and it's good to taper off with some supervision if you can.
So did you just stop taking it cold turkey?
Yeah.
So the opposite of what I just said.
Yep. No, yeah, exactly.
And that's what
No.
most people do. How did that make you feel, just stopping?
Oh, the fall, it's horrendous.
Yeah, well, describe it for us. What was it like?
Well, I've also, coupled with the ADHD, I've also got bipolar. And the bipolar medication didn't seem to be working anymore, is the best way I can put it. Because I was over here, and then over here, and then I was over here, and it was like that for about a week.
The pendulum just swung.
Yeah. And it actually lasts a whole month is what it feels like to me, or the absence of it can be felt for a month.
Sure, I'm sure that's true, yeah.
So it was bad. I shouldn't have done that, but I mean,
What made
I
you
need to
do
get
it?
off of it.
Why did you do it? Why did you just stop?
Excuse me, sorry, I'm having a heartburn real bad right now.
Do you want some of my water?
Please.
Casey has that effect on people.
Well, why were you drinking that? When we were riding the elevator up here, you told me you met your wife at Cabela's. Are you still married?
Yes, happily.
And how does she deal with this?
On the second date, I told her this is something you're going to have to deal with. I'm a drug addict. I told her on the second date because I knew on the first date that I wanted to marry her. And I know I hate when people say they love at first sight, but she made me a believer.
That's awesome. That's great.
And so you told her on the second?
I told her on the second date, and she had never dealt with anything like that before. And she says, all right, let's go. I was like, it's okay. I can deal with it. I said, okay.
Is she dealing with it?
She's got a strong head.
She's amazing.
She's got a strong head.
Supportive. Yeah.
Yep, she is she's doing everything she can because I still struggle with the addiction. It comes back for me, and I need to get it to where I kick it for good. It's just something that I've let keep relapsing in my life, and she's stuck with me the whole time. She's not gonna put up with it, but she's been by my side through this whole
Her and
fight.
I talk a lot, and in fact, we're just getting ready to start going to the. Now I'm not going to remember the name of it. It was on your program a while ago.
The Craft.
Yes, we're going to go to Craft next week.
Yeah. With USARA.
Yeah.
Which is great for family members to help support and set reasonable boundaries with their addictions, their loved ones.
Yeah, and I want to help her because I can see in me how I enabled him, and I don't want her to fall into that same pitfall. And she's an amazing girl, and they're great together. They're perfect for each other. And I just think that she needs to be part of the healing as well. So, and I think if we go together, it'll help us both. So,
Well, and I think, Casey and I have talked about this, and other guests have talked about that, recovery really is a family affair, if you want to say it that way.
Absolutely.
Putting recovery all on the addict is ineffective and really inaccurate. It's the family dynamic that helps everybody heal and bond and support each other and grow. And so, kudos to you guys for doing that, because it's your addiction is really a family affair, and your recovery needs to be a family affair as well.
Now, you've talked about your other children as well. Have any of them had any?
Mm-mm. I think they watched and decided, I don't want any part of that.
Is Spencer the oldest?
He is, and my other two boys don't have ADHD like he does. And in fact, when I really started to notice a difference in him was when I had my second son, and he wasn't so active and so, all over the place. And I just always attribute it to, he's a boy. That's how boys are.
Yeah.
It's your first kid.
Yeah.
You don't really have much to go off of when you're raising them.
And so, yeah, they...
One of the advantages that your other boys have as well, then, which we kind of skipped over, is another core symptom of ADHD is impulsivity. Mm-hmm. And so people with ADHD are at higher risk for impulsive behaviors that are dangerous, especially during their teenage years, just based on the fact that you're kind of impulsive. And so high-risk behaviors like taking drugs are definitely increased when you struggle with ADHD. So even if Adderall had never been part of the mix, an ADHD person is at higher risk for developing other addictions.
Well, and, I grew up with a brother who was an addict. And I used to get so mad because he was in rehab my senior year, and I'm like, oh, so now I don't get a car, now I don't get a life because my brother's in rehab, But
there's the resentment.
There was for a long time, and it took him till about 40 to get clean, and thank goodness he is. But
45,
right? But I get seeing someone going through that and being like, I don't want that. Because I was the same way. I'm like, I don't want to be that. That's not where I want to. And seeing what it did to my parents, I think, was the hardest part for me.
And you wanted to break the cycle.
Yeah.
So you've got this opportunity to speak to a lot of people out there. As a mom, what would you tell people out there who are thinking about Adderall, ADHD, and some of the lessons you have learned and are going to continue to learn? Because I didn't realize he was just 2 months off of Adderall. So, I mean, there's a long road ahead of you.
Absolutely.
There's no way to sugarcoat it. I mean, it's...
Well, and he'd go through long bouts of being clean, and then he'd use again. And then another 3 or 4 months, then he'd use again. So if I could give anybody the thing I would like to share is, one, if your child is diagnosed with ADHD, get a second opinion. Not because you don't trust your doctor, but because it's smart. Because, like you said, I think, and I did have some teachers that I felt like they just didn't want to deal with him, so they wanted him medicated. And if you do get that diagnosis and that is what you're dealing with, try behavior therapy first. Try doing some different things first, and don't just give him medication. I mean, I think people use it as a cure-all. I know I did. I'm like, oh, this is going to fix my kid. Great. And I never thought about, like what you said, Dr. Matt, about the, learning behavior therapy, doing social stuff, all the other work that needs to be done to help move them up to where they are with kids their own age.
And there are resources for parents out there. I often direct parents to a parent program to help parents train kids at home by Russell Barkley. And the Barkley Institute has done a lot of research in this area. And so, that there are resources out there that you can look into right away as a parent, even before you start working maybe with a therapist.
Yeah. And I think, too, if you do decide to medicate your child, regulate it. Because I just gave him a bottle of pills and told him to take it every day. And that was really irresponsible on my part. I'm just as guilty as all the other people in the Happy Valley with, it's a prescription. Just take it every day. It's not a big deal. I didn't know that there were people that would just take 1 or 2 or 3 or, you know what I mean? And it's funny, you had a guest on a while back, and I don't remember who it was, but it was the one that she was saying, I don't even take cold medicine, or...
Lizzie Dankers.
Yeah, and the way she explained that was so profound when she said, I take anything, it tickles my addiction. Because that's how he is. If he takes anything, I think it just tickles his addiction to where he wants more. Because he's abused things like cold medicine and what's the stuff you take if you go on a cruise? Motion.
Yeah. Sickness medication.
Tramadol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Like, he tried everything.
Yeah, it was... There was nothing I couldn't get my hands on.
That's kind of how he is if it just tickles that addiction, he's done.
Well, I think we grew up learning on Schoolhouse Rock that knowledge is power, right?
Knowledge is power.
And I think instead of...
I think Public Enemy said that too.
I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
Right. Either or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They both work.
And so as a parent, I think maybe just to paraphrase what you're saying is know more about the prescriptions. That's one of the problems that I think we have as a culture, as a society, is we just look at it as a prescription. It comes from a person that we trust.
A doctor who went to school.
Right.
This is what he does for a living.
And if we, as parents, realize I need to inform myself, it only takes a minute now. You can go online and read everything about a medication.
WebMD, Google.
And then you're going to be more likely to make choices. Some medications, are much less harmful potentially than others. And something like Adderall or those types of medicines, while they can be very, very helpful, they have the potential to do a lot of harm.
Yeah.
Now, Spence, this would be your time. I know there's a lot of people who've reached out to me on Facebook and Instagram and wanting to know more about Adderall, and that's kind of why I wanted to have you on the show to put a face and a voice to it. Is there anything you could share with them, about your trials, about your tribulations, and the kind of things that you're going through?
Preventative-wise, like you're saying, go through and make sure you're doing behavioral therapy as well. Don't just make it the medication that has to fix it all. Now, if you find yourself in this problem with Adderall, or you think you're starting to take too much, or it's a problem like that, you don't have to fix yourself. It's okay. You're beautiful the way you are. There's a reason why you are the way you are. There's no need to fix it. There may be things that you can do to help control how much energy you have, or how much awesomeness you think you have. Because people with ADHD are always so hyper. I don't know if you can tell, but I would just make sure that if you're going to step into a medication like Adderall, like Dr. Matt said, make sure you're fully encompassed in all the knowledge that you can get about this, and make sure you're actively involved in making sure that you're going through therapy, or you're getting some sort of coping mechanism other than medication. Because when I come off of Adderall 2 months now, I still have things that I need to learn as far as being able to pay attention, social skills. These are things I should be learning and not just medicating. Try to learn.
And you're continuing your learning because you're going to go see Dustin Hawkins at SOAR.
I am so excited, actually.
And, the journey of 1,000 steps begins with one step, and I think you're taking another step in the right direction. I didn't write that first part.
That's right, Confucius.
Yeah. So, the things that – this has been a very insightful episode because I don't think we've really tackled Adderall or kind of, had a mom and a son come in here and be so honest and share – all the things that have gone on.
Yeah, what I've kind of really enjoyed is talking more about the personal experience that a person with ADHD has. And I really like, Spencer, how you put it there at the end that, ADHD isn't who you are. All of our brains operate in different ways with strengths and weaknesses. And a person with a lot of energy and, creativity and intelligence, you may not be the best at sitting still, but that doesn't matter, because if you just embrace who you are and learn to work with who you are, in certain settings, you may have advantages over other people. School just isn't one of them, and growing up can be really tough interpersonally when you have a hard time with those things. But loving who you are, making the most out of who you are, really embracing the person that you're becoming, not letting something like ADHD or bipolar disorder or any mental health issue define who you are is really important. I think that's at the core of this, and because it causes problems in certain settings, we search for a cure, search for a fix. Being the parent of somebody myself who takes those medications, I empathize to a degree. While we've had definitely different experiences, it's you want the best for your kids or for yourself, and it's important to embrace a broader view of who you or your child is.
And the takeaway I'm going with is that there needs to be more than just the pill for the answer of
Right.
ADHD. I think there's so many times family members, like you did, Kristen, where you gave the pill and automatically you saw something change, and then you just stopped.
Which
at
is
that.
exciting.
It's exciting,
Right? Yeah.
But you need
But
to
it's not
couple it
enough.
with a couple other things, like the behavioral treatment, a therapist, and kind of make sure that they're getting it from all sides, because it is not a miracle pill. It can do wonderful things, but it doesn't fix everything.
And, in the world of mental health, so if we're talking about a person who's taking a medicine for depression or for anxiety or for attention or whatever it may be, people are pretty complicated, and we are more than just our biology, and our brain continues to learn. So if you're using a medication appropriately to help with one of those issues, that's great. But realize there's a lot more to you than just that biology that you're treating. And now that the biological symptoms are dampened a little bit, that's the perfect time to get in and do some retraining of your brain and your behaviors. And it's exciting when you do the whole treatment, then a person makes lasting changes and becomes more the person they want to be. So I'm excited to I'm going to see if we can get Spencer to agree right now to come back in the future and talk to us after you've been working in recovery a little bit longer and tell us more about that journey, because it's exciting to touch base with you right now at the beginning of it.
Yeah.
And I'd love to have you come back and talk more about it later.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to.
And Kristen, thank you very much for your support of this podcast and for reaching out and bringing this to the forefront of everybody's attention. We really do appreciate it, because that's what this podcast is all about, is helping people out in the world of recovery. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for listening today. If you know somebody who needs some help, have them do what I did. Give Pinnacle Recovery Center a call. Thank you, Dr. Matt.
Thanks, Casey. It's always fun.
Yeah, you guys be good, and we appreciate you listening. Project Recovery is a KSL podcast.
The contents of this program are for informational purposes only. The program is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, licensed therapist, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this program. KSL does not recommend or endorse any specific tests, physicians, products, procedures, opinions, or other information that may be mentioned on the program. Reliance on any information provided on the program is solely at your own risk.